It was just before 11:40 p.m. on a quiet Monday night. In the manicured, middle-class suburb of Bettystown, County Meath, a world away from Dublin's gritty gangland battlegrounds, 39-year-old Richie Carberry pulled up to his home. He had just parked his Audi SUV and was closing the gate to his driveway when the darkness was torn apart. An assassin, lying in wait, stepped from the shadows and opened fire with an automatic pistol. A spray of at least 6 bullets shattered the suburban peace. Carberry was hit multiple times, one fatal shot striking his stomach, and collapsed onto the pavement just feet from his front door. The killer vanished into the night, leaving behind a dying man and a chilling message. A line had been crossed. The execution was swift, professional, and it was about to ignite a cycle of vengeance so savage it would horrify the entire country. This wasn't just a murder, it was the spark that lit a firestorm. We are about to dissect every piece of this brutal and complicated case, the man who was killed, the vicious war that sealed his fate, and the horrifying fallout from his murder. If you want to understand the real story behind true crime cases that shook a nation, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We cover the most compelling cases with the depth they deserve, and you won't want to miss what we have coming up. To his neighbors in the affluent Castlemartin estate, Richie Carberry was a 39-year-old family man, a father of 3 living a quiet, respectable life. To Ireland's national police, the Gardaí, he was something else entirely, a top-tier drug trafficker and a pivotal figure in organised crime. Though originally from Coolock in Dublin, he had relocated to the serene coast of Bettystown, carefully curating an image of suburban normalcy. This facade was so effective that despite being a major player on the Garda intelligence radar for a decade, Carberry had masterfully avoided serious convictions, with only minor public order offences on his record, nothing that hinted at his true, violent profession. But his influence in the underworld was immense. He was more than a dealer, he was a financier, a strategist, and a mentor to a younger generation of criminals. So, when a power vacuum appeared in the nearby town of Drogheda, Carberry saw an opportunity for expansion. He decided to back a new, ambitious crew of local criminals, providing them with the cash, connections, and drug supply they needed to challenge the established narco bosses for control of the town. His connections, particularly through family, ran deep into the heart of Irish gangland. He was married to Eileen, the sister of one of Ireland's most feared and volatile enforcers, Robbie Lawlor, a man with over 100 convictions and suspected of at least 5 murders. This marriage placed Carberry at the nexus of a gathering storm. He was wealthy, connected, and powerful, but that power painted a target on his back. He knew the risks intimately. Over a year before his death, in September 2018, he had a will written and registered, leaving his entire estate to his wife. It was a clear admission that he knew he was living on borrowed time. The threats were not abstract. After a failed assassination attempt in March 2019, where his home was shot up, Carberry installed bulletproof glass and briefly moved his family away for their safety. He was officially warned by Gardaí that his life was in immediate danger. He even planned to flee Ireland altogether, having reportedly signed for an apartment in Manchester to escape the escalating violence. But he returned home. Richie Carberry was playing a deadly game, and on November 4, 2019, his time ran out. You cannot understand why Richie Carberry was executed without understanding the war he was bankrolling. The Drogheda Feud wasn't a long-running, ancient conflict. It was a modern Irish gang war, born of pure greed and a sudden power vacuum. It all ignited in 2017, when the single, dominant drug syndicate that controlled the lucrative cocaine trade in Drogheda splintered into 2 warring factions. Drogheda, a historic and growing commuter town just north of Dublin, had become a massively profitable market for illegal drugs. On one side of the split were the established bosses, a powerful faction led by Owen Maguire and the notoriously violent traveller crime boss, Cornelius Price. They had a firm grip on the local trade and a reputation for brutality. On the other side was a younger, hungrier crew known as the Anti-Maguire faction, which included brothers Keith and Josh Boylan. This is where Richie Carberry played his crucial role. He wasn't just an ally, he was their engine room. He funded them, supplied them with drugs and weapons, and used his decade of experience to transform them from upstarts into a legitimate threat to the Maguire-Price organization. The simmering tension exploded into open warfare in July 2018. In a shocking and brazen move, Owen Maguire was shot 6 times at his home on Cement Road in Drogheda. He miraculously survived but was left a paraplegic, with a bullet permanently lodged in his spine. Court documents would later name Carberry's hot-headed brother-in-law, Robbie Lawlor, as the gunman. It's alleged Lawlor shouted that these are from Keith, as he fired, a direct reference to his ally, Keith Bylan. That assassination attempt was the point of no return. It kicked off a wave of tit-for-tat attacks that plunged the town into chaos, with petrol bombings, kidnappings, stabbings, and public shootouts becoming grimly regular. The violence escalated so severely that by November 2018, police in the area had to cancel all leave just to maintain control. As the financier and strategist for the faction that tried to kill their leader, Carberry was now a prime target for the Price Maguire gang. They knew that taking him out wasn't just about revenge for Owen Maguire, it was a strategic move to sever the money and supply lines of their rivals. The failed hit on him in March 2019 was a clear warning shot. But Carberry didn't back down. And on that fatal night of November 4, 2019, the Price Maguire faction executed a plan to finish the job for good. His murder wasn't random, it was a calculated blow in a deadly game for control of a town. The assassination of Richie Carberry was ruthlessly efficient, bearing all the hallmarks of a professional gangland hit. The killer knew his routine, lying in wait for him to return home late at night before striking in the suburban quiet of Castlemartin Drive. The weapon, a high-powered automatic pistol, allowed the shooter to fire a rapid burst of shots in seconds, giving Carberry no chance to react or escape. After the fatal attack, as Carberry lay dying on the pavement, the assassin melted back into the night. A Garda patrol car had passed the house just 30 minutes earlier, a stark illustration of the hitman's calculated patience. The Garda investigation began immediately. The first critical piece of evidence was discovered a short distance from the scene, a burnt-out Ford Fiesta van. This is a classic tactic in Irish gangland murders. The getaway vehicle is almost always torched to meticulously destroy any forensic evidence like DNA, fingerprints, or gunshot residue. It confirmed what investigators already suspected: this was a well-planned, professional contract killing. From there, however, the investigation slammed into the infamous wall of silence that defines gangland crime. In these paranoid, tight-knit criminal circles, cooperating with the police is a death sentence. Potential witnesses, even innocent residents, are terrified to come forward. While Gardaí were certain the hit was ordered by the Maguire-Price faction as direct payback for the attempted murder of Owen Maguire, proving it in a court of law was an entirely different and monumental challenge. Intelligence suggested the same crew responsible for the earlier Feud murder of Keith Brannigan was behind Carberry's assassination, but hard, admissible evidence was elusive. The investigation became a slow, painstaking grind of intelligence gathering. With no cooperating witnesses and the primary evidence literally turned to ash, the trail eventually went cold. For a time, it seemed as if Richie Carberry's killers would get away with murder. Richie Carberry's murder was intended to be a decisive blow to end the conflict. Instead, it lit a fuse that led to an act of savagery so depraved it stunned the entire nation. The key to that horrific escalation was Carberry's brother-in-law, the notoriously violent and unstable Robbie Lawlor. Lawlor was in prison on a separate matter when he heard his brother-in-law had been killed, and he immediately vowed revenge. Released from prison in December 2019, Lawlor was a man possessed. His target was a 17-year-old boy named Keane Mulready-Woods. Keane was a low-level associate of the rival Maguire-Price faction, making him an easy and vulnerable target. What happened next was unthinkable, even by the depraved standards of gang warfare. In January 2020, Lawlor orchestrated the abduction, murder, and dismemberment of the teenager. This was not merely a revenge killing, it was a theatrical act of terror, meticulously designed to send the most gruesome message imaginable to his enemies. The discovery of Keane's remains, dumped in different locations in Dublin, horrified the public and triggered a massive police crackdown. In a tragic and twisted postscript, Richie Carberry's own brother, Stephen Carberry, later pleaded guilty to helping Lawlor dispose of the boy's remains, telling a court that Lawlor's provocations were the very reason his brother Richie had been killed in the first place. But the cycle of vengeance didn't stop there. The feud was now spinning wildly out of control. Cornelius Price, the leader of the rival faction who had fled to the UK, reportedly posted a video on social media toasting the news when Robbie Lawlor finally met his end. On April 4, 2020, just 3 months after Keane's murder, Lawlor himself was shot dead in a meticulously planned ambush in Belfast. Police on both sides of the border believe his murder was direct payback, ordered by associates of Cornelius Price for both the murder of Keane Mulready-Woods and the earlier attempt on Owen Maguire. The man who sought such brutal revenge for his brother-in-law had suffered the exact same fate. The deaths of Richie Carberry, Keane Mulready-Woods, and Robbie Lawlor marked the bloody apex of the Drogheda Feud, a conflict that claimed at least 4 lives and turned a proud provincial town into a war zone. Today, the key players are either dead, in prison, or have fled. Cornelius Price, the formidable leader of the Maguire-Price faction and chief suspect in several other murders, ultimately escaped justice. He died not from a bullet, but from a rare brain disease called limbic encephalitis in a Welsh hospital in February 2023. Many of those who played a role in the horror of Keane Mulready-Woods' murder have been brought to justice. Paul Crosby, who lured the teenager to his death, was sentenced to 10 years in prison, while Gerard Cruz received 7 years for his role. Stephen Carberry, Rich's brother, was sentenced for assisting the gang by disposing of the boy's remains. And as recently as April 2026, a major Dublin crime boss known as Mr. Biggs was arrested on an extradition warrant, wanted by police in Northern Ireland on charges of murdering Robbie Lawlor. The story of Richie Carberry's death is a stark look into the dark heart of modern Irish crime. It shows how the immensely profitable drug trade has seeped from major cities into prosperous commuter towns. The feud triggered a massive, dedicated police response, Operation Stratus, which resulted in hundreds of searches, arrests, and significant seizures of cash, drugs, and firearms, crippling the gang's operations. But the root cause, the relentless demand for illegal drugs, remains. Richie Carberry lived by the sword and died by it. His ambition and his choice to finance a new generation of violent criminals led directly to his own execution in his driveway. His death then triggered a chain of horrifying revenge killings, a brutal illustration of the self-destructive futility of gangland violence. And while the main protagonists of this bloody war are now gone, the grim reality is that as long as there's a fortune to be made from narcotics, new and more ruthless figures will always be waiting in the shadows to take their place. Thank you for joining us for this in-depth look into the murder of Richie Carberry and the Drogheda Feud. If you want more true crime stories that go beyond the headlines and explore the complex web of cause and effect, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know in the comments what you think about this case and the cycle of violence it represents. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next investigation.